I'm not writing my own auth system. I've said it. And I don't want you to write an auth system either. I know it's a simple thing, right? But here's the deal breaker. Authentication is an easiest place where you can introduce security vulnerabilities. By doing so, you are not just dealing with bugs, you're opening up your whole entire system to hackers. You're risking user data, you're making yourself an easy target. And I've seen what happens when authentication goes wrong. I've made mistakes in past during my early careers and have seen senior developers make even worse. In this video, I'm gonna break down why an authentication system is hardest to get right, real world stories including the mistakes I made, why third party authentication providers like Firebase, Okta, or Auth0 are your best bet, and if ever, I mean, ever, what would be the situation where you want to introduce your own auth system? If you're new here, I am Rahul Bharti. I'm a senior software engineer at EPAM Systems with over 6 years of experience in building and maintaining softwares. So let's get started. Most developers think authentication system is just checking for username and password in database. But it's only 1% of the equation. To make sure that your authentication system is secure, you must never store your password in a plain text. You must always hash it. You need to handle JWTs or refresh tokens and also invalidate any sessions. You need to provide them with an extra layer of security through multi-factor authentication via OTPs, push notification, biometrics, or using third-party authenticator apps like Google Authenticator or maybe Microsoft MFAs. You need to put in a system that prevents against brute force and credential stuffing attacks. You also need to provide a way for a user to log in using his socials, either Google or Facebook, and SAML based enterprise login for organizations. You need to set up a secure password reset flow so that no one can exploit it. And you need to set up a monitoring and logging tool so you can detect and block any suspicious activity on login attempts. And you must make sure that none of this introduces any bugs. And that brings me to alright, let's talk about some real world security failures I've seen. In my early careers, when I was working with PHP, I used MD5 to hash a password. I mean, it's just a hash. But it was a shocker for me to know that the MD5 is the weakest of all. It just takes few seconds to reverse it using rainbow tables. I learned the hard way and later switched to bcrypt. But what if this particular or this potential issue was onto the system which had thousands or 10,000s of users active? Other incident I remember is my colleague coming to me and is like, Rahul, I built this website a while back and suddenly there's no data. She was 2 or 3 years into this, and I looked at him like, you have not sanitized your SQL queries. The hacker used SQL injection to get past the login system and change the whole website. Imagine telling your client, oh yeah, all your data is gone. It was really hard. That's one small mistake took the entire system down.
Well,
That if you search on internet, you will find lot more horror stories than these. These are just the small ones. So what's the solution? Use the third-party authentication providers like Firebase, Auth0 or Okta. These platforms have teams of security experts that ensures that your authentication is secure by design. They have modern password hashing like bcrypt or argon 2 and token security in place. They provide protection against SQL injection, brute force attacks, and token theft. They have multi-factor authentication in place and it's supported out of the box. They also have a real-time threat detection and they apply security patches as soon as they detect any threat. Then you can scale your application without any headache. Handling an authentication for 10 users versus 10 million users is a very different comparison. With Firebase, Auth 0 and Okta, you get auto scaling. This will handle peak traffic without breaking. They provide rate limiting that prevents against brute force attacks, and also they provide faster login experience because of the data centers that they have worldwide. And these services are also compliant ready. If you store your own authentication data, you need to comply with GDPR, HIPAA or SOC 2. These services are already certified and compliant. If you build your own authentication system, you are responsible for the compliances as well. Now, are there any situations where you want to build your own authentication? Maybe if it's one of the cases, right? First is if you're working with military, banking, or healthcare system that needs the complete control over data, or you're working over with some government projects that has very strict data law, or maybe you need a highly customized authentication flow that these third-party providers don't support, which is a very rare case scenario. And if you go this route, your security cost will skyrocket. You will need 1 to 2 monitoring tools in place, including SEIM and threat detection system. Second, you will need a team of experts who will be watching the logs 24/7. And if anything happens, you have to apply patches really fast. And that will cost way more over than any of these secure or these third-party authentication providers. I'm going to say this only one thing. Don't reinvent the wheel. Authentication is hard. It's easy to make security mistakes. And these third-party providers will save you time, money, and stress. So unless you are in a need of custom auth, I'm going to say this again. Don't roll your own authentication. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.